Many immigrants move to richer countries in Europe and North America in search of better opportunities for themselves and their kids. But here is a serious question. When they arrive, are these opportunities really the same, or can your name, racial background, place of birth, or foreign degree reduces your chances even before you get through the door? By the end of this video, I will show you what more than 3 decades of hiring experiments reveal. Now, I'm usually critical of Indians abroad, or I discuss research that exposes the hypocrisy of Indians. But today, I'm turning the camera around. I'm going to show you research that documents what may be called the hypocrisy of employers in richer Western countries when it comes to hiring immigrants and people from racial and ethnic minority backgrounds. In other words, Indian immigrants as well. These societies often speak the language of equality and merit, but the question is whether equally qualified candidates are actually treated equally. Before I get into the main results, I need to explain you how this research was conducted. This will give you a better sense of how seriously we should take the findings. The study is a meta-analysis, which means that the researchers collected and combined evidence from 114 field experiments conducted across 12 countries in Europe and North America between 1990 and 2021. So almost 30 years, 3 decades. These countries include the US, Canada, as well as Belgium, France, Germany, Great Britain, Italy, Netherlands, Norway, Spain, Sweden, and Switzerland. A meta-analysis brings together the existing body of evidence, so the overall conclusion is not dependent on one experiment, one country, or a particular moment in time. Another important thing to understand here is that this study aggregates field experiments. And what are field experiments? When companies advertise actual job openings online, in newspapers or on job boards, researchers send them fictitious applications. Now, the applications are designed to be equally strong in terms of qualifications, but the researchers vary signals such as applicant's name, place of birth, place of education, citizenship status, or racial and ethnic background. They then observe whether the employer responds positively, usually by inviting the applicant for an interview or asking for more information. In other words, the idea is to check whether two similar qualified applicants are treated differently because of the differences in their name, racial, or ethnic backgrounds. What the paper finds is quite surprising. On average, the place of birth itself has little independent effect on callback rates once the research accounts for foreign education, citizenship, and racial background. The United States may be the only exception. And one possible explanation is that the American employers may be concerned about an applicant's legal right to work or the possibility of deportation. Now, the much larger penalties are associated with foreign degrees and citizenship. Having a foreign degree is associated with roughly 35% fewer callbacks, while signaling that you are not a citizen of the host country is associated with about a 25% callback penalty. These disadvantages are concentrated among first-generation immigrants because they are much more likely to have foreign degrees or lack citizenship. An unfamiliar foreign degree may be interpreted by employer as lower quality signal of skills or productivity, while non-citizenship may raise concerns about work authorization or the ability to employ someone over the long term. So at least part of the first generation disadvantage may not be anti-immigrant animus alone. But the most disturbing and consistent finding is racial and ethnic discrimination. On average, white native applicants receive roughly 40% more callbacks than applicants from non-white minority groups. And this racial and ethnic penalty remains regardless whether the minority applicant was born abroad or inside the host country. In other words, becoming native born does not necessarily protect non-white descendants of immigrants from hiring discrimination. What this means is that discrimination follows different trajectories depending on race. White immigrant groups, such as people from Eastern Europe origin in the UK, for example, may face an initial ethnic penalty, but over generations, their names and identities often become less distinguishable from those of white majority, but non-white groups including Black, Middle Eastern, North African, Latin American, and Asian, which includes mostly South Asians, such as Indians, continue to be racially discriminated against across generations. Even when they are born in the country, receive their education there, speak the language, and possess citizenship. This is what the researchers call forever foreign. For Indian origin applicants, the paper does not provide a separate estimate, but Indians are included in its broader Asian category, which is predominantly South Asian. And there is one more disturbing possibility. The evidence suggests that discrimination specifically against foreign-born people may have increased over recent years, possibly alongside the growth of anti-immigrant rhetoric in far-right politics. Now, these findings are disturbing not only for Indians and Indian immigrants who move to these countries in search of better opportunities for themselves and for their kids, they're also disturbing for the Western economies themselves. These economies have benefited immensely from attracting and nurturing talent from around the world. An immigrant may move believing that the struggle is temporary and their children will eventually be treated as full members of the society. But for many non-white groups, the evidence suggests that the penalty may persist across generations. This is not only morally troubling, it also means that firms may be overlooking qualified candidates and making poorer hiring decisions based on signals that tell them little about the candidate's actual ability. Now, if you ask me, I do not have one simple policy recommendation, but this is something Western employers and policymakers need to seriously think about, reflect upon, and correct. Because there is contradiction between presenting your country as a destination for global talent and then penalizing them at the first stage of hiring. We really need to think about this discrimination. Thank you so much for your attention. I will see you next time with another important idea on Devil Wears Data.